maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council or ask questions. The chair, councillor or council officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees, however. Councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. It's come to my notice, Councillor Ferrari is in the receipt of a petition. I would invite council to consider that item to be discussed at the end of tonight's council meeting. Somebody prepared to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Seconded, Councillor Beeson. All in favour? That is carried. So I will open it to the floor. Is there anybody with any questions from the gallery? Thank you. There are.
Good evening, Council. I was wondering what action the Council may be looking at taking for climate change, and if it so far had an impact on the Council in any way in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and also is there some strategic plan that the Council is going to design, put together, create, or whatever for the next 2 to 3 years, because the climate change is starting to really impact.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Mr. Gowans, are you going to answer that one, or I'll hand it to the CEO? He looks like he's prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Davies, for that question, which is a really important issue, and certainly it is consistent with the council plan. And the council tonight will consider a progress report on the implementation of actions that are contained within the council plan, which includes the issues around environment. Council does have a climate change mitigation action plan, which has previously been considered by council. There are a number of actions the council have taken in respect of climate change, and one of those that's pretty visible to the community is the installation of EV charging stations at a number of our towns. Council has, in recent years, installed solar panels on most of its buildings. We monitor our energy consumption, and we've implemented a tree planting program in our towns to improve the green coverage within our towns, provide cooling in our towns, such as both at Navoka but in other towns as well. So there are just a couple of the actions that council has taken in recent times. It is certainly a major issue for consideration, and I think the second part of your question is what further actions council proposes the next 2 or 3 years. Well, essentially that will be a matter for the incoming council to consider if there's anything further over and above what has already been committed to by this council. But we are committed to continue to implement those actions that are contained in the council plan as they are now.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yeah, I'll allow you one more.
Thank you. Council, I was wondering also the impact on farms in this Shire. To what extent is the council involved supporting farmers and obviously their land and their crop in terms of climate change and that preparation for the next few years, because it's going to be extremely serious, particularly rivers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. I'll respond to that one as well. And I really appreciate the question because it's a really important issue for our community that relies very heavily on agriculture. Agriculture employs about provides about half the jobs in the local economy. So it is really important. A number of years ago, and it's probably about might even be 9 or 10 years ago, council was involved in a project which looked at the impact of climate change on our key agricultural commodities that are produced in this region. And look, for want of the exact title of the document, I think it has the word landscapes in it. I think it's a landscapes plan, but essentially it looked at what the projected impact of climate change would have on the production of key commodities, including canola and wheat and barley, as well as on grapes. Now, that was one element of that study. The other element was the impact of climate change on biodiversity within the Shire. Now, what the report found was that from a grapes perspective, that there was a recommendation about the fact that there was going to be an increase in response to an increase in projected temperature into the future, that there's a recommendation that growing of warm season grapes as compared to cool climate grapes was recommended, and there was a projected sort of trend into the future around grape growing. And then there were a number of recommendations there in respect of the specific commodities around barley and wheat oats, about moving towards species of those commodities that were more resistant to drier climate. So that's a piece of work that council was involved in at that time. In terms of what support is council providing, or what is council providing for our agricultural community in response, one of the services that council provides is that we do provide sources, locations for stock and domestic water access during dry periods. So where there are droughts, for example, that becomes a really important service for those drought-affected communities. And during the last 10 years, there have been periods of time where our community has been in drought, and that source of water for stock and domestic and for emergency supply has been really, really critical. From the point of view of our economic development strategy, the key service that council provides to farming community relates to transport and provision of roads, and the objective of actually increasing the number of roads that are able to be used for larger, heavy vehicles. Now, that doesn't necessarily relate to climate change, but that's a key. What is a thing that council provides for agriculture? That's one of the key things, because it enables businesses to get their product from and to market and to the farm gate. But certainly we monitor the trends in agriculture. We report through this council meeting about issues that are impacting on the agricultural community. Information generally that's available through other sources like ABARES, which provides a whole range of information. And part of what reason for council doing that is to have some awareness of what these impacts are. Certainly when it comes to setting rates, where the farming community contributes a significant portion of the rates, council is very mindful about external factors impacting on our farming community and makes adjustments to the differentials around rates. And we do employ a business engagement officer to work with our farming community to provide access to grants and farm support that's available through the state government and through and the Commonwealth government. So it's not necessarily services that are provided directly by council, but they're services provided by other agencies that we're able to facilitate that contact that occurs. That's not an exhaustive range of response to your question, but I'm happy to sort of, to have further discussion with you about what other options we might have to provide support to impacted farmers.
Thank you. Can I just make a comment rather than a question? I'm really pleased to hear this, because Pyrenees Shire is in the top 4 ecosystems in Victoria. So it's such a marvellous ecosystem in the whole Shire, and it'd be terrible to not get behind that and protect it. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. David. I will add that the council is a conduit to state and federal government also when it comes to drought, which we hopefully does not arrive, but we are the direct conduit to the other government departments. We're moving along. Councillors, I need a motion that we accept the items for noting. 9.1.1, customer contact. Moved Councillor Easton, seconded Councillor Keogh. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Item 10.1, the councillor activity reports. Moved Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Keogh. Thank you. All in favour? That is carried. Item 11.1, the Assembly of Councillors. Moved Councillor Easton, seconded Councillor Keogh. All in favour? That is carried. Flew through that beautifully. Items for decision. Item 12.1, Economic Development and Tourism. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So further to the previous comments, this item relates to the tourism sector, which is one sector of our broader economy, and it relates specifically to a local area action plan. So this is what the plan looks like, and it has been some time in the making. Council received a report previously that related to the destination management plan. Now, this was a document, a major sort of strategic document prepared by Tourism Midwest Victoria. So Pyrenees Shire is a member of Tourism Midwest Victoria, which is a regional body that assists in the cooperative approach to marketing our region for visitors to come to. And the Destination Management Plan is the main strategic document that guides the work of that regional body, of which Pyrenees Shire has a seat at the board. This local area plan is a subset of that major plan, which deals just with activities within Pyrenees Shire. And previously, council have had a tourism strategy, which this plan now supersedes. So we've got a local strategy that effectively guide our activities in growing the visitor economy in the Pyrenees Shire. This strategy has the aim of growing the level of tourism activity from 223,000 visitors spending $37 million in 2023 to reach 320,000 visitors spending $72 million by 2033, representing a 95% uplift. So for us to be able to achieve that vision, that uplift in the visitor economy, this plan actually sets out a number of priority activities for council to be able to achieve that. And of course, council doesn't do this on its own. We do it in collaboration with a whole range of people, and particularly in collaboration with the private sector, as well as with other government. The draft document was prepared in conjunction with the Regional Destination Management Plan by the consultants engaged through Tourism Midwest Victoria, and has been placed on public exhibition, and over a 4-week period. It's received quite a lot of views from the public. It's been on our engagement hub and had lots of views. And as a result, there were 6 responses provided. The report identifies some of the comments that are provided in that document. There was really only one matter that required a minor change, and that was there was a reference to Clunes within the document. Now, I looked through the document. Clunes is referenced there, but it's referenced as part of a township within the region. So it's not necessarily inappropriate, but nevertheless, Clunes is not in Pyrenees Shire, and that's probably the point that the person was making. A number of the actions that are considered to be actions that will impact and improve visitor economy. One of the key issues in terms of growth in the economy is for council not only to have a product that is of interest to visitors, but the opportunity for visitors to be able to stay within the Shire. Currently, there's a limit of accommodation, and people will visit Pyrenees Shire and then they'll go and they'll stay elsewhere. So there's a lot of loss of potential revenue into the Shire. And so one of the priority actions is to grow accommodation options for visitors, to keep them here longer and to make them feel as though they want to actually spend more money. They spend more money on accommodation and then meals and other offerings. They might stay a couple of days. So certainly the issue of accommodation is one of those factors. There are a number of other key areas that are targeted to improve the visitor economy. One is to brand and to market the Shire in conjunction with Tourism in West Victoria. Improve the cycle experiences around our township. So this is in response to a perceived growing trend in visitor economy where there's a demand for cycling, and we have great opportunities to improve cycling experiences. The redevelopment of the caravan parks, particularly the Beaufort Caravan Park, which is one that's already on Council's radar. The boutique accommodation, centralised cellar door experience. So this is where there's an opportunity for that sort of experience in the northern part of the Shire, for someone to come to get a centralised experience of what that cellar door is like, to better present the product that's grown in our Shire that we're really proud about. That's our wine. And also to improve streetscape, to enhance our streetscapes, particularly in Avoca and Beaufort, where some of the things that were identified from a tourism perspective. Now, each of those are somewhat dependent on funding, and this is where it is very much a partnership between council, private investors and government. And so in presenting this recommendation that council endorse the local area action plan, I recommend that it be endorsed, subject to any changes recommended in the report, which relates to the matter of clues being in there, and also noting that the implementation of actions within the plan are subject to funding.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Have a recommendation, Councillor. Somebody move, Councillor Eason, second, Councillor Clark. All in favour? Anybody wish to speak? Sorry.
I need one. Just a comment, like all the work that goes into that. Again, it's an incredibly important document to promote our region and to support all those businesses within that. So thanks to everyone involved in that.
Yeah, and I would add that maybe the misprint there might have even related to the Goldfields area, which we're looking for heritage. Councillor Clark, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Mayor, just I think to reiterate, Mr. Nolan said that 320,000 sounds like a lot, but we're already at 220 and we're back to pre-pandemic, which is a really good place in that sense of what we're at. So it is quite realistic and achievable as a plan. But I think, as Mr. Nolan said, the capacity for people to stay within our own Shire is the key thing, both in the context of this plan, but also in terms of the Goldfields Heritage project that we're working on at the moment. I think that something that we want to give a bit of focus to, probably another 6 to 12 months in that sense once council's back.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'll put the motion once again. Thank you. Moving along to item 12.2.1, I'll hand over to Mr. Gowans. Thank you, Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement for participation in a proposed regional bioland study designed to increase understanding of native ecosystems and improve biodiversity outcomes in the region. Pyrenees Shire has recently been approached by the City of Ballarat to join neighbouring councils in a regional bioland study. The Connectivity for Central Victorian Uplands study concept proposes to use a multi-species approach to identify wildlife corridors across the Central Victorian Uplands, covering the southern and central western parts of the Pyrenees Shire. The proposed study also covers parts of rural Golden Plains, Hepburn and traditional lands of the Wadawurrung, Wiradjuri, Eastern Maar and Djadjurrung tribes. Council is committed to improve the biodiversity values of Pyrenees Shire for future generations through its Biodiversity Action Plan 2016, which recognises the value of increasing a fundamental understanding of native ecosystems in the Shire through expert consultation. The potential benefits of participation in the proposed study include identifying priority corridors for protection and restoration to offset the impacts of habitat loss and biodiversity, extending habitat range of key species and enhancing genetic diversity between the Brisbane Ranges and Mount Cole, better informing landowners and community-led groups undertaking programs to enhance biodiversity, expanding our knowledge of current condition, known threats and predicted impacts of climate change on native ecosystems, establishing a scientific basis for review of environmental significance overlays and vegetation protection overlays in the planning scheme, and identifying possible key priorities for acquisition or rezoning. Discussion as the City of Ballarat has raised that a proportional contribution with participating councils is proposed. Combining resources with neighbouring LGAs represents an opportunity to obtain valuable research that would be extremely challenging if undertaken alone. Although we don't have an exact figure on what that will be, it is proposed to bring a future report to council to further consider that contribution. The Central Victorian Upland Biolink project would enhance biodiversity outcomes of the region in line with Pyrenees Shire's commitments to encourage biodiversity and natural values. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that council provides in-principle support for the connectivity of Central Victorian Uplands Biolink study and considers a future contribution to the project once project costs are confirmed.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. We have a recommendation, councillor. Move councillor Clark, seconded councillor Ferrari. Wish to speak, councillor Clark?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments on this. I think this is an opportunity for the council in that sense thing, and we've got a really significant portion of this area, and most particularly quite a significant portion of actually cleared land in between basically the forest in around Ballarat and Creswick to Mount Cole that I think really needs to be addressed in that sense of things. Mr. Gowans, to my mind, there's a bit of a discrepancy between how the project's been described and what the BAP says and what the Arthur Ryler documentation says. It's actually got more of a focus on Box Ironbark, which is about another 40, 50 kilometres north. Is it just an example, or is it actually the?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. That has been noted by the representatives of the Shire who are liaising with this, that there is a bit more work to be done on that scope, because I completely agree that there are species that are being shown, hopefully, as an example, but hopefully they will be more prevalent to what the natural biolink would be in a undisturbed environment that better reflects the EBCs that we're actually dealing with.
And that would be my concern, that we focus on those areas, particularly that run along the top of the dividing range, which really is the Box Ironbark. The Box Ironbark's down off that and to the north. In that sense, I think the other thing about that's really important to note, and kind of goes back to your question earlier, Mr. Davey, is if you want to deal with climate change, you go to the highest point in the landscape and you run your corridors down, which effectively is the dividing range and the rivers that run from it, which we're right at the centre of in that sense. So again, makes eminent sense that we'd be involved in a project like this.
Thank you, councillor Clark. Any further questions, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Item 12.2.2, the amendment C47 PYRN Township Framework Plans. Thank you, Mr. Gowans.
Just for the record, Mr. Mayor, this report author was Rachel Blackwell, which may not be listed in your report, who's the Manager of Planning and Development. The purpose of this report is to update council on the progress of planning scheme amendment to incorporate framework plans for Snake Valley, Walbra, Lexton into the planning scheme. It's also to notify council of the intention to formally exhibit planning scheme amendment C47 in November this year. The Pyrenees Futures project commenced in 2018. Pyrenees Futures aim to develop a range of policies and strategies for sustainable growth and development of communities, and was strongly focused on local identity and character. The project initially focused on the townships of Snake Valley, Walbra and Lexton. Following extensive community consultation, the 3 township plans were adopted by the council on the 19th of March 2019. In February 2020, Council agreed to seek authorisation from the Minister for Planning to formally prepare and exhibit a planning scheme amendment for the 3 framework plans. Conditional authorisation was subsequently granted by the Planning Minister and included conditions requiring modifications to the amendment. Since this time, Council's planning team have been working with DTP, or the former department, which was Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, to redraft the amendment to address the current format required and the conditions of authorisation. This work is now complete and officers can progress the planning scheme amendment. It is proposed to publicly exhibit planning scheme amendment C47 for at least 1 calendar month commencing in November this year. Letters will be sent to residents identified and adjacent to the township boundaries of Snake Valley, Waubra and Lexington. Council officers also intend to undertake drop-in sessions with each local community. During the exhibition period, landowners and community members and government agencies will be invited to make submissions to Council on the proposed amendment. The amendment includes the following components: inserting the framework plans for Snake Valley, Waubra and Lexington and new local policy for each township into the planning scheme. A design and development overlay will be introduced to land north of Waubra to protect the character and values of the area. Some existing residential properties in Waubra will be removed from the farming zone and included in the low density residential zone. In Lexington, some properties that are suitable for development will have the restructure overlay removed, with some rezoned for farming zone to low density residential or rural living zone. Any submissions received in relation to planning scheme amendment C47 will be required to be considered by the council. This planning scheme amendment is the finalisation of the Pyrenees Future project and the initial part of the Pyrenees Future project, and represents an important stage of converting this work to outcomes in the Pyrenees planning scheme. The planning scheme amendment, once completed, will make positive long-term changes to the communities of Snake Valley, Waubra and Lexington and guide future growth and development. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that Council notes the completion of the preparation of planning scheme amendment C47 and proposed formal exhibition that will commence in November 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Gowan. Have a recommendation, councillors. Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Ferrari. Any comments, Councillor Clark?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. It's nice that the world comes around here. It does feel like a while ago that we actually put this into the system and the world's moved on, but moved on in a positive way that we actually really got to get our act together and we want to house more people in these towns is what we knew wanted to happen. I think the state might have just caught up to what we were originally thinking, which is a nice place for it to be. There is some change in these things and we'll find out how that goes when we go to consultation in that sense, but fully endorse that we get on with that as soon as we can post the election.
Further comments, councillors? The only one I would make is it's taken 6 years to get this one off the ground. How long do we have to wait for the next 3 that might be proposed? Any indication, Mr. Gowans, or do we just go with the flow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your question. It's Council's intention to continue with its strategic planning priorities, and there's quite a number of priorities in the strategic planning space, and township planning is absolutely one of those key items. In order to do the township planning to get the best outcomes, there's a number of background studies that need to occur, including things like bushfire plan overlays, flood planning that gets into our planning scheme, housing demand studies, and a number of other strategic studies that Council has committed to, including a rural strategy that looks at the land surrounding townships and how we best can protect its values as well. So there's a whole lot of things that need to mesh together, but it's absolutely Council's and from an officer point of view's intention to continue with the strategic planning program that Council has committed to.
Thank you very much for that response. I'll put the recommendation, councillors, those in favour, as carried. Thank you. Moving along to 12.2.3, planning and development update for August 2024. Thank you once again, Mr. Gowan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Generally, this report is to give council summary of activities with the Planning and Development Department. We generally take this report as read, and there is quite a few items in this report just outlining the activities that the Planning and Development team have undertaken, and a number of strategic planning issues that we've just referred to. What's outlined in the program there. So I will take the report as read, and the officer recommendation is that council notes the information and endorses the activity contained in this report.
Thank you. Moved councillor Keogh, seconded councillor Eason. Any comments, councillors?
May I just highlight, it's very exciting that Cannon Memorial Church Heritage listing and the support that they've received and the work that they've put into it is just incredibly encouraging. So just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Yep. I just note that the cats are not real popular in the Pyrenees Shire. Make it outside the backyard. No further comments. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Item 12.3.1, emergency management. Ms Brownell, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides a progress report on the review of the Municipal Emergency Management Plan and seeks endorsement of the reappointment of one mandated emergency management role. The Emergency Management Act requires councils to appoint a Municipal Emergency Management Officer, or a MIMO for short. At its meeting in November 2023, the council appointed the Director of Corporate and Community Services as a MIMO. And I would just like to say that it says at the top of this report that I didn't have an interest, but I have declared an interest because I'm named in the report.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The appointment was intended to be only temporary until appropriate resources were appointed that could undertake the role, and it's normally fulfilled by the incumbent within the governance management position. With that role now filled and the incumbent receiving appropriate training, it's proposed that the role be transferred to this officer. So it's now proposed that the role of MIMO be transferred to the Manager of Governance and Performance, and the Director of Corporate and Community Services remains as a deputy. The role will continue as chair of the MEMC. That's the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee. That's something that was endorsed by council a couple of times in the past. With regards to the Municipal Emergency Management Plan, which was reported previously that it was reviewed in 2023 and submitted to the Regional Planning Committee for ratification. That ratification actually came through before the end of last year, but they didn't inform us formally. So now they have informed us formally. So I'm pleased to advise that that plan is now been ratified fully, and it's been published on the website, etc.
Excellent.
So it's the officer's recommendation that council notes the ratification of the Pyrenees Shire Municipal Emergency Management Plan by the Regional Planning Committee and appoints the following officers, Municipal Emergency Management Officers and Deputy MIMOs with immediate effect. And that is the MIMO will be the Manager of Governance and Performance, and the Deputy MIMO will be the Director of Corporate and Community Services. Thank you.
Move councillor Keogh, seconded councillor Clark. Any comments, councillor Keogh?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. Just to say thank you so much to Kathy for the effort she's been in, having been the councillor rep for the last few years on MEMC. It's been a lot of work, particularly in revising all those plans and the amount of effort of getting everyone together and doing that to such a high level, and now to have that plan come to fruition. Huge thanks, and it's been an honour to be on that committee, and I'll still continue at this stage. We've got a meeting next week up in Ararat, so that's been wonderful. I just wanted to really put that vote of thanks forward.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Motion, those in favour, is carried. Item 12.3.2, public transparency policy. Thank you, Ms Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council's adoption of the reviewed public transparency policy. In accordance with the policy framework review schedule, the policy was reviewed in May 2024, including feedback from members of council's senior leadership team. The review identified that there was no changes required. So the officer's recommendation is that council resolves to adopt the updated public transparency policy. Thank you.
Move councillor Ferrari, seconded councillor Clark. Any comments? No? Put the motion, those in favour, that is carried. Thank you. Item 12.3.3, fair access policy and action plan. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Following a successful community exhibition period, officers seek council adoption of Pyrenees Shire fair access policy and subsequent support to implement an associated action plan. The Fair Access Policy Framework is an Australia-first process aims to give women and girls better and fairer access to community sports infrastructure and programs. It's been developed by a framework by the Office for Women in Sport and Recreation and in partnership with Vic Health and Sport and Recreation Victoria, and requires all local government authorities or Victorian local government authorities to adopt a gender equitable access and use policy by September of this year. This initiative ensures all Victorian councils proactively make available fundamental opportunities for sport and active recreation on an equal basis to all members of our community. The Fair Access Policy and Action Plan, which has been provided to councillors, will assist council in educating, promoting and making sustainable change towards equality in our sporting and recreational communities. The policy commits council to consider opportunities to strengthen gender equitable access and use of facilities in alignment with 6 fair access principles, including inclusivity, full participation, equitable access, equal representation, encouraging and supporting user groups, and prioritising user groups committed to equality. It was the policy and action plan were on public exhibition for 28 days during July and early August, allowing the community to provide feedback and input into the draft action plan and policy. And community sport and recreation clubs were also directly invited to provide feedback. And the broader community was made aware via consecutive weeks of print media and social media posts. At the close of the exhibition period, the report says 4 surveys were lodged, but in actual fact 6 were lodged. And 3 of the initial 4 were either player, participant or volunteers, and of the later 2, one was a Pyrenees resident that was in support of the policy, and one was a resident that was not in support of the policy due to a claim that equity threatens safety and security, both personal and national. So, through that engagement process, it does suggest that there's a broad community support for the adoption of the policy, and it's believed by officers that the adoption of the policy is a pivotal initiative to address barriers for women, girls, and sorry, I'm having difficulty with my language tonight. Women, girls, and gender diverse people to enjoy equal access and inclusion. And it's the officer's recommendation that council adopts the fair access policy as presented in attachment 1 that was provided to councillors, and supports the progressive implementation of the fair access action plan as presented to councillors in attachment 2.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Have a recommendation, councillor. Somebody prepared to move? Councillor Eason. Seconded, councillor Keogh. Any comments, councillor Eason?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is something that we've been working on for some time. It's a process that we've got to go through and will take some time before we get to equality, but every step along the way is one step closer to finishing.
Very cool. Councillor Keogh.
Just that it's really been heartening to be able to see this sort of already starting within council. We've had some great things happen, like I've seen girls' change rooms be modified and at Carnham and across the Shire and those sorts of things. We've still got a way to go, and this is a wonderful policy to be able to make sure everyone has that equitable access to all those sort of facilities, and particularly in the sporting field. So very excited about this.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Put the motion. Those in favour? Those carried. We move to item 12.3.4, council plan progress update. Once again, Ms Bramwell, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides the council with an end-of-year progress report on actions planned to deliver the strategic goals and priorities identified in the council plan for the last financial year. At the end of June 2024, the council plan is at the end of its third year and now enters its final year of implementation. And of the 63 priorities included within the plan, all except one have now commenced. And many have progressed beyond complete, becoming part of business as usual ongoing activity, which is a great outcome. The one item that remains outstanding and not yet started is priority 1, people, C, improving accessibility and inclusivity. And it refers to the development of an accessibility strategy. In 2023, discussion on this item, having not commenced, was conducted, identifying the lack of funding availability to progress it, which is still the reason why it hasn't progressed. But at the time, it was discussed, it was determined that officers would see what they could do within available existing budget parameters. And during 2024-25, we've had further discussions, and it's planned, during the early part of 2024-25, we had further discussions, and we now plan to conduct an accessibility audit of council facilities, which will inform the development of a priority list of improvement works required. We should be able to do that within existing budget. So performance against the measures is including with the report and provided over the next few pages. There are some areas where we haven't achieved our targets, our internal targets, and I can provide explanations of those if you wish. But the officer's recommendation is that council considers and accepts the end of year council plan progress report as at the 30th of June, considers and approves the following recommendation for change to the council plan priorities, and that is to change the wording in the council plan for 2024-25. Sorry, that's an error. The priority 1, people. Item C, improve accessibility and inclusivity. Item 3, to change the wording to read, conduct an accessibility audit of council facilities to inform the prioritisation of works to improve accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. We have the recommendation, councillors. Somebody prepared to move? Councillor Clark, seconded councillor Ferrari. Thank you. Any comments, councillors? Put the recommendation. Those in favour, those carried. We move to item 12.3.5, rates waiver for the Avoca Historical Society. Ms Bramwell, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report seeks council consideration and approval of a request to exempt payment of the rates charges for the Avoca Historical Society regarding the old Avoca Courthouse in the High Street, Avoca. Until 2022, the rates on the courthouse were paid by Working Heritage, previously known as the Mint Inc., who managed, on behalf of the state government, all the unused courthouses in Victoria. Since then, management of the property was transferred to the Avoca Historical Society, and therefore rates responsibility was transferred to them. The Historical Society, following the report in the July meeting of council, where the endorsement was provided to waive the rates of the Beaufort Historical Society, the Avoca Historical Society wrote to council requesting an exemption also be granted to them. And in addition to those, it is likely that other historical societies within the Pyrenees Shire have similar experience. So council officers are investigating that to see if there's anyone else that needs the support from council. It should be noted as well that it is a priority in the council plan to support the preserving the historical heritage of the Shire, and I think this fits quite clearly into that priority. Since this report was written, it's also been brought to council's attention that the Lansborough Historical Society is in a similar situation, and councillors might like to think about whether we can provide similar support to them. It is the officer's recommendation that council waives the current rate set of $575.54 for the current financial year, excuse me, for the Avoca Historical Society, grants an exemption against issuing rates notices relating to that property for the years 2025-26 and 2026-27 inclusively, requires council officers to investigate other historical societies in similar circumstances and provide a future report to council, and requires council officers to report back in early 2026, providing a status update on the circumstances around the payment of rates for the historical societies to facilitate the decision on potential rates exemptions after that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Move councillor Ferrari, seconded councillor Pear.
There's a discussion about ability to decide on Lansborough.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I understand that we have had an approach from Lansborough as well. My sense would be I'd be happy to foreshadow a motion to deal with that once we deal with this item. I think it'd be the best way, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Your concurrence.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Put the recommendation. Those in favour? That's carried. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Excuse me for looking at my phone, but that's why I just took a photograph of what I've just given to Chantel so that she's got it. If I could move that the CEO be authorised to approve a rates waiver for the Lansborough Historical Society in line with the waivers that we've approved for the societies of Beaufort and Avoca respectively. If I could get a second, I'm happy to speak to that.
That's seconded councillor Ferrari.
So I think, again, it's appropriate that this has some due process around it, but I don't think there's a necessity for it to come back to council. We've already considered two of these and approved them. In that sense, my understanding is Lansborough is a little bit different. For both Avoca and Beaufort, it is actually a state-owned facility that they're occupying an old courthouse, whereas in Lansborough they actually own their own facility, and that good luck to them in that sense. But really the service they're providing the community is identical. So I think in that basis, I'm very happy to give Mr Nolan the authorisation to deal with the matter appropriately and provide that wage waiver.
Thank you, councillor Clark. Any further speakers on that? No? Okay, councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just think this waiving of the rates for these historical societies is a really good initiative. They do such important work in recording, preserving and displaying our histories. They work tirelessly, and most of the time it's volunteer work. So, you know, they put in so much work to make sure that our history is preserved and it's displayed and recorded and kept in a way that the future generations can have a look at it. And I think the ability to assist these historical societies in this way will go a long way to assisting in this future sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I would reiterate what you've had to say, and to the credit of the Lansborough Historical Group, they're a small group of volunteers, like as you have said already. They've already produced, I believe, at least 3 books that relate to the immediate area around the northern end of the Shire with regard to rail connections and other things, and they're a very honourable group. So I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. We move on to item 12.3.6, carryover of funds. Thank you once again, Ms Brownlaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report sets out those items of income and expenditure that are required to be carried forward to the 2024-25 budget from the previous financial year due to grants being received in advance or project activities spanning multiple financial years and being unfinished as at the end of 30th of June. Each year following the completion of Council's annual statement, a process is undertaken whereby information is reported to Council relating to untied grants received during the financial year that relate to this financial year. and projects that continue to be works in progress as at the 30th of June and require funding to be carried forward into this financial year to complete the works. Carryover funds requested are supported by surplus funds in the budget. A reconciliation at the 30th of June is carried out to ensure that the list of carryovers is supported by surplus funds and the financial position of council remains within the parameters of the 10-year financial plan. It is therefore that the officer's recommendation that council approves the addition of 1.897 million to the 2024-25 budget to fund the list of carryovers are listed in a report, which are mostly plant purchases and projects carried forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Bramwell. Thank you, councillor Keogh has moved, seconded councillor Clark. Any comments, councillors? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question, Ms Bramwell. I know a number of those are grant monies that we've received from other levels of government. Are we at any risk in the kind of next 12 months in terms of having to get those spent in a timely way according to the guidelines?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillor Clark. No, there's no danger of that. They're all within the parameters and timelines of the project, so there's no danger of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr CEO.
I might just provide a further response to that to Ms Bramwell in that a couple of these projects are multiple year projects, not just 2-year projects.
Yeah.
Both at Caravan Park project, for example, is a major project, and whilst we have those state funds, it's possible that might extend into the following financial year. Our endeavours to actually to get that first stage completed, but the grant funding does provide that it may extend beyond that time.
Thank you.
No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour, it's carried. Thank you. We move to item 12.4.1, 2025 Australia Day event. Mr Nolan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to endorse a community group to host the Pyrenees Shire Council Australia Day event 2025. There's a list of the townships that have hosted the Australia Day event over the last 10 years, and it has been a custom and practice of council to actually share this amongst the various communities across the Shire. And so council invited expressions of interest from communities to do that. We have received 3 expressions of interest. One from the Avoca Riverside Market, one from the Waterloo Community Group, and one from the Lexington Community Hub. In terms of the merits of each of those, it's worth noting that both Lexington and Waterloo have not hosted an Australia Day event in the last 10 years. And also then, given the completion of the Lexington Community Hub, in recent years, Lexington would be well placed to be able to host this event in 2025. The facilities at Waterloo, however, are quite minimal and the space is restricted, so holding an event at this location would require some planning and additional cost in the provision of hired assets and traffic management. A different type of Australia Day event might be worth considering if this one is to be held at this site, such as a picnic style event or other. So that's also worth some sort of consideration, but may require a little bit extra time in the planning. And Avoca did host an event in 2024 and of course would be well placed to host another event in future. Councillors, my recommendation is that council endorses the Lexington Community Hub application nominating Lexington as the host township and host organisation for the 2025 Australia Day event. That council engages with Waterloo community about their application to host Australia Day event to determine the suitability of the site and to consider what type of event may be suitable to be held there in the future. And that council thanks the Avoca Riverside Market Inc. for their interest in hosting Australia Day event and encourages an application to be made when expressions of interest are sought in the future.
Thank you, Mr CEO. We have a recommend. Move councillor Clark, seconded councillor Eason. Any comments, councillors?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I fully support the recommendation, and just in terms of Waterloo, I think that's a very positive approach to have a discussion with them about what we can do on the side. And that then just simply would have to come back to council for endorsement if they potentially can be 26. So would that be the steps?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further comments? I put the recommendation. Those in favour? Others carried. Thank you. Item 12.4.2, developing the 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan. Mr Nolan.
Councillors, the purpose of this report is for council to endorse a submission to VicGrid's developing the 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan consultation. The Victorian government, through VicGrid, is changing the way energy infrastructure is delivered in Victoria, and a draft Victorian Transmission Plan guidelines have been developed and are open for submissions. Part of the purpose of this report is to bring this to the community's attention. Obviously, it's a matter that council has held some views in the past, and it is of interest to our communities. VicGrid is preparing the 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan, which will consider Victoria's energy needs over the next 15 years. And they have released these guidelines for comment. The draft guidelines include a study area showing what parts of Victoria may be investigated further for suitability to host potential renewable energy zones, how VicGrid will determine how much energy is needed and when, how VicGrid will determine what transmission projects are needed to support new energy generation, how VicGrid will partner with First Peoples and engage with landowners, communities and industry. Councillors, there's particular interest from council perspective here, and it is proposed that a brief submission be highlighted. Submissions do close on the 25th of August, so there's not much time left to make the submission, but council have had a presentation this afternoon from council's planning and development manager on the matter, and there were a number of matters that were raised through that presentation that council might consider including in its submission. Obviously, council's expectations around engagement with communities and stakeholders really critical when you're bringing major infrastructure into our communities. The various impacts on communities, landowners and businesses are to be managed and mitigated, obviously, is something that has been the subject of a lot of conversations in recent years. The importance of landscapes on visual impact of transmission infrastructure and the visual impact of transmission infrastructure on landscapes is a significant issue. And the fact that many of these landscapes haven't been properly assessed for their landscape value. And so there is a risk that decisions about transmission lines might be made in the absence of that piece of technical work that needs to be done. The need to undertake landscape assessments across parts of the Shire is also important to be noted, we think. There's previously been some discussion about community benefit and the need to share the benefits associated with this infrastructure with the communities that are impacted. And we've previously made a submission specifically on that issue to VicGrid. The opportunity for co-location of facilities to minimise the impacts, the cumulative effect of transmission lines and renewable energy infrastructure is a factor, and obviously the consultation that we sort of spoke about. So, councillors, on the back of some of those matters to be included in our submission, I seek that council endorse the officers to provide a submission to the Victorian Transmission Plan guidelines.
You've heard the recommendation, councillors. Someone move Councillor Easton, second Councillor Clark. You wish to speak, Councillor Easton. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, just to follow on from the CEO's comment, I think it's really good the state has finally taken ownership of the transmission issue, which is really good. But this is kind of the plan that gets us the plan we need, which is actually where the transmission line is going to go. So I think it's interesting to reflect that the development to date across the state, and Pyrenees Shire is no different, has been along where the transmission lines have been, whether it's the line from Ballarat through to Horsham or the line through to Portland in that sense of things. But we're now beyond that with Western Renewables Link, beyond that with VNI West projects coming on board. if you look at the map that's with it, there's three key things you need to understand. First is that area out there is what the state has earmarked as the most prime area for development. That area there is Melbourne. Don't have to be blind for you to work out where we sit. And the area north of Melbourne, up around Gisborne and Kyneton, has been marked as fairly much a no-go area. So I think the implication for us is we do need to be really mindful. We need to watch this. We've got a lot more happening in this space over the next 5 years, unfortunately, but that's going to be our reality.
Councillor Clark. No further comments, councillor? Put the recommendation, those in favour? That's carried. Item 12.3, 12.4.3, CEO delegation. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will sort of state that I am the officer that holds the role of Chief Executive, and this report relates to the Chief Executive role. So to that extent, I do have an interest in this item, councillors. And the purpose of this report is to seek council to endorse the Chief Executive Officer to be delegated with capacity to make decisions during the election caretaker period. The Local Government Act sets out provisions for an election caretaker period, and that election caretaker period restricts council's ability to be able to make decisions, and there is no ordinary meeting that is scheduled during the caretaker period or the election period. As council and the community are aware, council is in the process of undertaking a range of flood mitigation works. We are working with state agencies for the approval of a range of claims that are in the system for us to be able to undertake works, which are valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there may be a requirement for council to make timely decisions in respect of being able to undertake some of those works should those approvals come through in the next couple of weeks or so. And should that occur, councillors, it is recommended that council consider delegating to the Chief Executive Officer power to award contracts as required during that election period, relating to the awarding of contracts for emergency and recovery works up to $1 million, and amends the instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to reflect the power and function delegated in one. I am aware that the once the council is elected, it could be into early November. There is a period between the 26th of October and when the council is elected. Council may consider extending that time from the 17th of September to the date at which the new council is elected. It's only a matter of a couple of weeks there, but as such, councillors, I'll leave that in your hands.
We have a recommendation, councillor Clark.
Yeah, I'm happy to move, Mr. Mayor, but can we please change that second date to the 8th of November, which is another fortnight? I think that will give us sufficient time. Will I get a seconder?
Move, second, councillor Easton. Any further discussion, councillors? If not, put the recommendation, those in favour? That is carried. Now we go back to this one, yes. Moving through to item 12.4.5, which is the petition that was mentioned before the start of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might just perhaps invite Councillor Ferrari to speak to the petition that he's received from the community. And this is a late item that's being considered in addition to the agenda. The petition has been received, I understand, since the agenda was put out. That's why we're bringing this forward. So,
Thank you, councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have here a petition that I've received in relation to the as the Beaufort Ward councillor in relation to the matters being undertaken with the libraries, and I'll read the narrative as per the petition. We, the undersigned, being residents, ratepayers, employed persons within the boundaries of the Shire, visitors and other regular users of the libraries within Shire's resource centres respectfully petition Pyrenees Shire councillors to adequately fund the Shire's library services within the Beaufort and Avoca Resource and Information Centre, and to ensure that there are no reductions from present levels of funding, serviced hours, including operational hours when staff are present and actively on duty, as opposed to unserviced hours when assistance from staff will be not available. No reductions in staffing levels and no reduction in purchasing of materials. And I note with the count, there's 947 signatures, which is significant. In fact, I think it's the most, the petition that since I've been on council with the most signatures that I've heard, which is fantastic. And I think what's really clear to me is that their communities are very passionate about their library. So I submit that, table that petition for a future meeting and discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. And I just, in terms of the processing of this petition, I just draw council's attention to the governance rules associated with the processing of petitions. The governance rules state that unless council determines to consider the matter as urgent business, no motion may be made on any petition, joint letter material or the like, except for that the petition be received and that petition be referred to the Chief Executive Officer or relevant director for consideration and response, or that petition be referred to the Chief Executive or relevant director for a report to a future council meeting. And it is normal practice then council to seek a report to be prepared by the relevant officer. And as such, councillors, I recommend that council receives the petition and that council requests a report to be presented to the September 24 meeting of council on the matter contained in the petition.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Move, councillor Keogh, second councillor Ferrari. Sorry, councillor Ferrari. Anybody wish to speak to the situation? All those in favour? Is carried. Thank you. Very good. We'll move into councillor reports and general business. I'll start with you, councillor Eaton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The cuppa and briefing at Warborough, Beaufort and Warborough in early July went well. Warborough community came along and asked their questions, and we got information, they got answers, and that's what it's all about. I represented council at the Central Goldfields Art Gallery for the opening of their Art of Gold display, which was a lovely evening, and some of the gold that was turned into jewellery and artefacts back in the day is just beyond belief. I'd had to see some of that work try to be done today, how they did it back in the 1850s and 60s. They had some good goldsmiths. And I represented council at the Natty Alley Recreation Reserve Committee meeting for the new elections, and duly appointed the appropriate staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, they were fantastic too to be at Warborough too in the past month. I was also honoured to hand out a number of academic and character awards to many of the students up here at the secondary college last week. It was an incredible honour to see so many students achieve so much and had such fantastic results for their study, but also congratulations to the staff who are supporting these students all the time. We have a beautiful secondary college here that supports students from all over the Shire, and they're brilliant, and it was just such an honour. I was also then fortunate to go and see two Beaufort girls and two Snake Valley girls who are part of a group called Serendipity, not only play here at the Flywheel, which is a fantastic new little venue, but also go down to Queenscliff and be part of Battle of the Bands. So they were the sort of guest group to the Geelong and surrounds, but it was so fantastic. Such a brilliant event, a great display of talent from around that Geelong area and our girls. But so wonderful to see young people performing, but also supporting it. It was just incredible. Such a fantastic event to be part of. Incredibly proud of our girls. They just received so much support and they were like, yeah, it was awesome. Very, very good event. So thanks to a beautiful teacher, Simone, at the high school, who was a big promoter of the girls in supporting them, and who knows where they'll end up. I think someone on Facebook likened them to the, move over Taylor Swift. So you never know, you never know. I'm not sure whether Serendipity's there yet, but you never know. Thirdly, it was incredibly important and informative to be part of the library's review, and huge thanks to all those community people that came out. I attended one of the Beaufort sessions here, and I think it was really heartfelt and very genuine, and we can see from the petition that's been put forward tonight the importance of our libraries and what that means to our communities. So thank you to all the community members, and you can still put forward your fill in those surveys and online or on a paper version up until the end of this month. So please do that. The more information we have, the better we can provide that service to you. Also, we were talking about historical societies, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but I really want to shout out again because they are amazing. They are totally amazing. They're volunteers. They're preserving information and history of our areas and our people that is priceless, but we can't get it back once we lose the people and we lose that continued story. So huge shout out to them. I know Snake Valley too, I'm not trying to brag, but I know they've done at least a dozen published books and they are very good. And they do such a wonderful job of that. They also reach out really well with the social media, and they also have open days, which is so fantastic. So we're very blessed in our area and so many people get involved. So again, huge thanks to those. I also we have an amazing team. The Snake Valley Hotel has just gone in leaps and bounds. Mark and the boys, they're just incredible. And they ran a brilliant white ribbon event. It was during the day, so it was a bit hard for some people to get to a couple of weeks ago. But they had celebrity, they had Steve Monaghetti. They also had our local hero, Mick O'Brien, a good friend. And it was just an incredible event, attendance-wise, but also what it was promoting and quite unique for that area. So, and they're very much looking at running a number of more of these events. So very excited to be able to be part of that in the future too. So that'll be just wonderful, just incredible. We also have, it's really happening in Mount Annie Ward, mind you everyone, coming up. We've got the Little Halls tour coming on the 6th of September to the gorgeous little Bluestone Lake Goldsmith Hall. And the band's called T-Bones. I haven't heard them, but they're really good. So that's on the 6th of September, starting at 6:30 p.m. So again, you can check out stuff, everyone on social media, to be able to get tickets, or I think you might be able to just turn up, but I'll clarify that one. The other one I wanted to say, now that we have had rain, just a reminder again, change of road conditions, like Trevor's talking about, that's your expertise, but really important that you're careful on the roads. And again, that you either email, phone, get on the internet, use the app to report any concerns, because we need to get onto them before they become worse. And then finally, it is Sustainability Week. So it's incredibly important that we've talked about the climate acknowledgement for farmers, for communities, and also a big reminder, you would have seen, last month we were talking about ways of recycling and really being conscientious about that. There's some great little tips on the information that council's got out or on our website, but it's just so important that we can use the resources that we've got, that we're not wasting the beautiful resources we get from our planet. So please remember to do that. Check which waste products go into which bin and what the little things you might need to do, clean it out or separate it, just to make a huge difference at the other end. So that's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's a hard act to follow, Chan. So I'll try and talk a bit slower. Had a usual councillor briefings and the cuppers and chats, and I really enjoy getting out to those and hearing what people have got to say. I think we all do. And as I've said many times, they are better attended now that we have them in the afternoon rather than through the middle of the day. It gives people more opportunity to attend, which is what we need, because it is all about them ultimately. Had a number of discussions with constituents on a range of different matters, but there's no question that my biggest discussions have been around the library or libraries over the last few weeks. And, you know, I just can't highlight enough how passionate the people are across the municipality about their libraries, not just Beaufort, not just Avoca, but across the municipality. So, and I think, you know, that petition is evidence of that with 947 signatures. There was a number of library information sessions, and I'd just like to thank the council for staff for arranging and staffing those community consultation sessions. It's important that we do consult with the community. I did attend one in an evening. It wasn't overly well attended, but my understanding the one previously in the afternoon was quite well attended. So again, that shows that people are genuinely interested in this topic, because sometimes when we do those information sessions, we don't get many people turn up, sometimes none at all. So I think, again, it highlights what people think about our libraries. And I'd just like to thank all the community members in attending those sessions and for voicing their thoughts on this matters. And just to let everyone know, those library sessions have now finished. So, but you can still provide feedback if you need to. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to begin by wishing all the teams in Central Highlands, Carnham, Lytton, Beaufort and Warburg well for the final start this weekend. So hope if you've got teams in your local area, they do well and that they make it through to the 14th of September. It'd be really good to see them in the finals. Just in terms of my report, obviously, I attended the National General Assembly with the Mayor and Mr. Nolan early in July in my role as President of MAV. I've had a number of other meetings. Also, again, our covers and chats, again, been really good in that sense of things over the time. Lexington, we had a second meeting of the Lexington Flood Study Group, and that's progressing very well in that sense of things. I don't think it's an easy problem to solve. Lexington, you know, it's in a really tough spot in the landscape with the really high hills around it. But I've got real faith in the consultants. They've really listened to people and got some really good data, and we'll see what comes with the next stage of that. I also went to the Lexington Racecourse and Recreation Reserve AGM. So the DECA AGM for that group a couple of weeks ago, and again, really good active group of people there. They effectively renominated everybody. They're that excited about the job and rolled on, which is good. And then last week, the CEO and myself and other council staff were at the Warburg Rec Reserve AGM, and again, significant interest and number of nominations for the committee, which is really good to see. We had our Stand for Council session last week in Ballarat, and it's good to see a number of faces there in that sense of things, and people that are keen to run for council. I've just done a bit of ABC radio this afternoon on, again, trying to get people excited about it. So I think that's a really good thing. That's probably all for my report, but I also did attend the Rural Councils Victoria Forum in Tarul near Seymour a couple of weeks ago. And Mr. Mayor, just to acknowledge publicly your efforts and your work as part of the committee of RCV for over 10 years, in that sense, not just representing Pyrenees Shire, but representing the councils of this region. We really appreciate it. And again, a thank you from us here at Pyrenees for that work you've done beyond the boundaries of the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. For those kind words. Canberra, saw the CEO and Councillor Clark and myself attend. The CEO and I had the opportunity to meet with Minister Watts' senior advisor, just to drum home the message that we've had floods in 2022 and we've had a bushfire in 2024, and we've outlaid quite a deal of money on the expectation that we'd get it returned. And at this stage, the cupboard is looking pretty bare, so we just hammered home the message to the Minister's advisor that we would appreciate a little bit of a return on our claims that we've got submitted. I attended the Warburg Cuppa also, and they are always good to talk to the local community. It seems that the smaller communities especially are always prepared to come along and make their voice heard, so that's very good. We had an emergency recovery meeting at Raglan that had some people as well as our council staff there for the locals to talk to after the bushfire. I had the privilege of attending the Rotary changeover dinner where Mr. Kirsanovs has been put back into the chair again. Congratulations, George. You're a great contributor to the Beaufort community in your endeavours, and we congratulate you on your appointment to that role. I attended here at the Beaufort Railway Station the celebration with Joe Helper and Steve Brax and Martha and quite a few of the local public to celebrate the 20-year return of the rail line. Had a great yarn with Joe, and he's very keen to catch up and have a luncheon together with some of the old faces. So somewhere down the track, we'll enjoy sitting down with Joe and reminiscing. I attended the Committee for Ballarat's round table dinner where Julie Bishop was the guest speaker. She held the floor for 3/4 of an hour and was extremely intelligent lady. She just reiterated what's going on in the world with the Ukraine and Russia and what's happening in Israel and, you know, world things that we read about in the paper, but Julie actually had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Putin, and she gave him a bit of a serve, and he said, "Is that what's called an Aussie shirt front, is it?" The crowd were quite tickled by that comment. Yeah, it was a very interesting evening. I had like David, attended the forum at Trewell, which was very interesting. We had a get together at Caveville Creek where the proprietors of the resort put on an evening for the local community, which I thought was absolutely marvellous. They rewarded their staff and the local people who pitched in during their grief. They all shared in a great night out. The compliments of Tim and Ange Chandler, and I thought that was wonderful. CEO was there as well. He'd have to agree. It was a great evening. Last week I was in Gippsland with the Timber Towns group, attending my last meeting there also, which was it was an eye-opener. I must say the state government have stepped up in Pyrenees Shire, where people who were employees of the timber industry have been made redundant, and on 3 occasions that I had the opportunity to visualise, people that were involved in the industry have been re-employed in local community with other businesses with the help of the state government. So you've got to give the government brownie points there. I don't give them too many brownie points for closing down the timber industry, but anyway, it's a fait accompli. It's with us and we can't do anything about that. I attended the library review along with others at the Beaufort meeting, and there were about 20 people turned up, so that was an interesting occasion. And the last one I want to impress upon you is going home from our council meeting last month. I topped the mount, I went to the bottom of the mount, taking my time going down, and right in the middle of the road, there's a young deer stopped right in the middle of the road. So I stopped and I went from the camera. This young deer was just a little bit different to the ordinary deer. He was an albino, pure white. And I mentioned to Jamie Hutchings at the evening at Caveville Creek about what I'd seen. Thought I might have seen a ghost or something. He said, no, I visualised it 3 times then. And unfortunately, I hope those blokes that are in the choppers up there currently this week shooting the deer don't shoot the white one. You see them, Damien, give them the message. And that's my life. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attendance this evening. I need a recommendation that we move into closed council to discuss a couple of items. Move councillor Ferrari, second councillor Keogh. So I thank you for your attendance this evening. We will reconvene after we resolve this situation. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, do I have permission to take 5 minutes to talk to one of the gallery?
Thanks, councillors, we're out.